one of the things that we need to understand when it comes to this matter of Muamalat, why it's not understood, why very few people know about it. And that explains why there is no objection with paper money and etc., etc., etc. We have to look into how Islam in the last 50 years have evolved in this part of the world. What Islam has been tolerated and which Islam has been just pushed aside. The Islam of the madhabs, that means the traditional Islam of the Imam Shafi and Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, etc., has been pushed to the sides in favor of a new type of methodology, a new type of ijtihad that has no basis whatsoever in any one of the madhabs. It's a new madhab. It's the new madhab that says no madhab. And it was originated by a man called Muhammad Abdu. This reformist Islam has a name, has a father, has the people who started, and it has a whole trace. And it has certain marks of who they are. Muhammad Abdu was chosen as the chief mufti of Egypt by Lord Cromer, and he wrote a book. Well, a book was written about it in his biography called The First Ustad, Al-Ustad Al-Awwal. And he changed the name of the alims. I can challenge all of you to produce one text of one sheikh or alim who calls himself Ustad prior to the end of the 19th century. Ustad is not an Arabic name. It's a Persian name that means master. It was the master of the guilds, but it was also the name used in the free Masonic guilds. When you're a master, you are an Ustad. Shocking, right? Muhammad Abdu was a Freemason. The people who followed him were Muhammad Abdu, Abul Afghani, who was his teacher, Muhammad Abdu, and Rashid Reza. From then, they created the magazine Al-Manar, which was the first pan-Islamic magazine, where they introduced the idea of riba is only interest, and according to Rashid Reza, only compound interest, simple interest is not haram, just only compound interest. Then later on they have to revise it. Their followers. The followers of this movement is called Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Ikhwan al-Muslimin, who are the radical boys of Islam, they are the founders of Islamic banking. They are the ones that they brought Islamic banking. They're the ones that brought Anwar Ibrahim here with Islamic banking under the arm. They are the ustads. Your ulama are called ustads not by accident. They're not alims, they're ustads. It didn't occur to you, where does it come from? It's not a Malay word. It's a Persian word. That it tells you the genealogy of your teaching. In Indonesia, you have Muhammadiyah. They are not the followers of Muhammadun Rasulullah. They are followers of Muhammad Abdu. Even though, if you ask any Muhammadiyah today, who is Muhammad Abdu, they don't have any idea. Like if you ask any Ustad today in Malaysia, they have no idea. But that's not the point. As Taraya was asking me earlier, why they don't know. They don't know because they haven't been taught. Because that tradition of thinking goes to Islamic banking and a very puritanical version of Islam that focuses on sexual puritanism. So the big deal is about the sexual behavior of women in particular. So they have 150 rules. Men can wear T-shirts and Elvis is God and a baseball cap is fine, but the woman has to comply with absolutely every conceivable piece of rules that there is. At the same time, that this thing is so strict on this side, at the same time, the rules of haram are completely, of riba, they are totally relaxed. That is Protestantism. We didn't invent it. When Al-Afghani, the teacher of Al-Afghani, who was called, the teacher of Muhammad Abdu was Al-Afghani, when he said, I am the Luther of the East, he wasn't joking. He did to the followers what Luther had done to his own followers. The acceptance of riba is halal, why Protestantism developed capitalism and not the South, that was Catholic, then they have to later on forced to accept it. And they created the Puritanism. If you look at the picture of a Quaker woman, which is a typical reformist European from the 18th or 19th centuries, you find that the Quaker women, they were totally covered, like nuns, from top to bottom. But the Quakers were the founders of Lloyd's Bank, Garrison Bank, and Barclays Bank. The Quaker banks, the Christian banks. So that's how it works. You make personal morality, particularly focus on the guilt of sexuality. Strong occupies all the discourse, and then you make the big thing about riba absolutely disappeared. Protestantism, that is what Protestantism is. And that's where it comes the Ustad. Simply, the answer is nobody has taught Muamalat in this country for probably since the day of independence. The only traces that there would have been of this matter being taught will be the Pondoks, the old Pondok, because they still follow the Shafi tradition. As long as you follow the books, that would have been preserved. But with the new system of education, all this thing is gone. Remember that in this country, Islam is totally official. So, I mean, it's owned by the state. The Mufti said what the government tells you to tell you. And so you have no choice on the matter. The Pondoks, you want to find traces of somebody speaking sense on these matters? It would have been in the Pesantrans in Indonesia and the Pondoks here.
It wouldn't be out of place for me to highlight to the attendance today that if you want to know more about what Sheikh Omar has just spoke, it is all in this book, The Esoteric Deviation in Islam, which is authored none other by Sheikh Omar himself. There is a question given to me online by an audience all the way from Pakistan, from Madam Humaira.
Oh.
How do we bring guilt back in the contemporary state of affairs without being dependent on a change of currency systems and markets? Can guilt be experimented by in small communities?
It could be implemented. It will depend on the environment. And for example, in low tech conditions, such as for example rural environments, it should be relatively easy to introduce guilds. And for example, a natural way of doing it in the case of Malaysia will be to stand upon the existing infrastructure of Pondok that is already in place and develop it, evolve it a little bit further into the creation of guilds. The problem is, in these environments, something can be done, but if you want to extend it a little bit further into urban settings where there's a lot of competition, it's not so much dependent on the community, but it's almost the anonymity that you find in the cities. It will be much harder, simply because you are competing against an enemy that has at its service endless amount of credit. And they have the distribution of the products in their hands. That's why, in order to succeed, you will have to be able to bring about more than just labor changes, which will be the guilds in the production. You will have to bring about marketplaces, caravans, and guilds then I will be convinced that you have at least sufficient reasonable infrastructure in order to support the sustainability of the guilds. A marketplace will do do wonders for the creation of guilds, because you have direct access to the consumers, you have an outlet for your products. Therefore, associating yourself, taking into account that you have the sale available, then it's a good guarantee in certain cases to start developing guilds. So it's very difficult to go around the marketplace. The marketplace is necessary. The caravans, obviously, you cannot have caravans without the marketplace. But the guilds, again, if I had to start somewhere, I will start with the marketplace. And then I will develop everything consequently immediately after. The only exception to that is the coin. As we will argue tomorrow, and we will look into this matter tomorrow in more detail, the coinage can start any time. It's such a matter that it requires nothing but the will of the individual to say, I want to use gold dinar. That's all it takes. And you say, but you need lots of people. Yes, but lots of people saying, I don't want it. That's all it takes. And you can start gathering people around a network of shops, etc., etc. So with the only exception of the gold dinar, the market is foundational to the development of caravans and guilds.